We talk a lot here about breaking cycles, and I know, Mel, that you've worked with thousands of women over a number of years. I'm really curious, what cycles do you notice that women get stuck in that hold them back from creating wealth?
So many. So they're loops that I feel like that we get caught in. If we look at blokes, and I hate generalizations, but we'll just play them here. So if I talk to blokes, often they're full throttle, let's just get in here and do it quickly and make it happen. That's their language. Whereas women, we kind of get stuck in our head and we overthink it and we get that paralysis by analysis. And often it's those voices that tell us, you just want to be a good girl or a nice girl. So for whatever reason it is, or we don't want to bet the house, or we think it's selfish. So we overthink and we press pause. So as a result, we play smaller. And I'm not suggesting the blokes have it all wrong. All I'm suggesting is that I absolutely see two very different cycles that men and women can get caught in. And that natural trepidation can actually mean that we're great investors or we're great in business because we're purposeful and because we think things through. But it also can stop us from acting and really hold us back.
I can relate to that so much, even on my, through my experience over the years, and having worked with you a couple of years ago and having this whole point in time where at my early 50s going, I really want to look at wealth creation and retirement, and the beliefs that I had that I don't even know where I learnt them from. It's just societal parents, the whole thing around you've got to pay your mortgage off. And then the biggest thing I remember you saying is you can't eat your house, and so that opened my mind to other possibilities around investing in shares and property and utilizing the equity in our home to be able to do that with. And so I really resonate with what you're saying in relation to, for a long period of time, that fear held me back from doing anything. But then once I'd made the decision and shifted that mindset, I could see how that really helped me, because I was thorough and I did seek support from the people around me who were experts in that area that I could trust, and listen to the right people rather than the media that's going, oh, look, everything's turning to hell in a hand bucket, I don't know.
And the media will always say that because they want to sell papers, they have clickbait headlines. And I think particularly I work with a lot of women in their 50s where it's that scarcity of, oh my gosh, but I have to make that decision now and I'm never going to be able to pay it off. And I just have to concentrate on paying it off. But why? Where do we pick up that message from? Why do we have to be debt-free when we retire? There's so many things I think we need to unlearn and figure out what's actually right for me, which I love. You've done that work.
Absolutely. And even Nikki's on that journey now.
I certainly am. And I remember that conversation with Ness as well, that was a really pivotal moment. And what I'm hearing in this and loving about this is that it's bring awareness to your natural strengths, leverage those natural strengths, and be aware of how they might be holding us back. What is the downside? What is the pitfall for that, so that we can accelerate and not even accelerate, but progress and move forward and unlearn. I love that, thinking about what do I need to unlearn right now. Another really important, impactful piece of advice and that you've given in the work that you do, Mel, I too have been following and I've done FAP, which is amazing. And there's just constant financial adult planning. For everybody, for those following along.
Please don't Google FAP. We made the mistake of using that acronym a long time ago, which is why we call it MFAP now.
I didn't realize, and that is good to know. Yeah. Right, don't Google. We'll make it really easy and put links in the show notes for you all, okay?
Search history will become very problematic if you Google FAP.
I feel like I want to Google it just out of curiosity.
Put it on a private browser and search for it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, get back to my thought. Yes, that's right. One of the great pieces of advice that you give is to find 7 streams of income, because again, we are looking at the cycles that we're breaking from a money mindset point of view and archetypes, and you look into that, you have some great resources around that. And then also the strategic, more practical planning tools and those sorts of resources. And that's really stuck with me, the 7 streams of income. Can you share a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah,
what that looks like?
So when people think about building wealth, often they think of a number. I need to have $1 million, or I need to have $5 million. They're often thinking of the number that they have to get to as far as the amount in their superannuation or their wealth. What people don't often think about, and it's an alternative view, is how much income do I want to generate? So Lawsy, who I work with, who's worked with me for 14 years, she's all about building wealth and then selling it down. She's very comfortable with selling it down. So she's after a number, so a number of assets. Personally, I'm after income streams. So I once read that most millionaires have 7 streams of income. And when I found that out, I was so motivated, which was my way of learning, and that discerner, which is my money type mindset, to figure out how I could make that happen for myself. And you might, if you're listening, you might be thinking about how many I have. Your wage is one, your business might be one, consulting, rent, dividends, royalties. There's so many different streams of income you can have. But personally, what I'm motivated to look for at the moment is to add more and more passive streams, because that means the more you have, the more choice that you have. And it means when we all started COVID, not when we all started COVID, but when COVID started, a lot of people realized how at risk their income was, because they either had our wage or our business income stream. Whereas by having multiple income streams, if one is turned off or one becomes shaky, you're not as stressed because you're then reliant on many more. And that's my fear for many people, is they have their wage and some super and that's it. And we want to just have some diversification in there so we have choice.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important. We talk certainly through starting a business and listening to various, mentors and reading books over the years. We talk about different income streams within our business so that we're not just putting all of our eggs into one basket. But what I love about what you're saying there is it's actually broader than that. So even if, and I think of, for myself, I run a business, obviously with Nicky, and then I think of my sister who is employed and receives a wage. And so we're in different scenarios, but for each of us, there still could be more income streams than just that one revenue point. And that's probably the distinction that I didn't have going into business, because I went, we're cool. We've sort of got this or this or this going on. But really, it's a much bigger picture. And I think that's been my biggest learning over the years that I've been in business, especially through the roller coasters of the highs and lows of some years have been amazing, some years have been really, really hard. And unlearning the cycles and I guess the patterns of behavior that were very much in the moment. And rather than thinking through, well, how could I take, if I had a good year and I've saved money, how can I make that money work for me, rather than putting it into going to course, buying courses and this, or saying yes to all the things that it's just going out and nothing's coming back in return necessarily.
Yeah.
So do you see that in the way that's a significant change of mindset people need to make in business?
Oh, absolutely. And I was an accountant in a former life, and what I saw with business owners is often they're so focused on business that they're not focused on building wealth. So it's exactly what you've just said, Ness. It's that, well, I just need to concentrate on that and building income streams. And also they think their business is their retirement. When I sell that, then that will be my retirement money. But I used to say to them, well, let's absolutely prepare your business for sale from every year that you're in it, so that it's, we used to call it being exit ready at any time. But you want that to be the cherry on top. You don't want it to be the whole cake. So you want to build other income streams. You want to be contributing to super. And business should simply be one of those things, not all of them.
That is definitely such an eye-opener and a great cycle to break for anybody listening, myself included. And I would love to touch on, you mentioned a little bit earlier around the negative news cycle, media. There's a lot about the economic uncertainty, recession, all of that. And one of the things that I noticed that successful business owners and leaders is it's not getting consumed by that. If we fall too much to prey for these news cycles, then you can get in a really dark place, really. But then we also need to know what we need to know. So what suggestions do you have to know, or maybe suggested resources or sources, or what are your tips to know enough, but not so much that we get pulled down by it?
I can't agree more with that. So I see it as, the Matildas are playing. We've got the Soccer World Cup at the moment. So I'm not into soccer. Oh
my God, Nikki is.
Oh, clearly I'm watching the dancing. I watched half of the Matildas game the other night. I say that I'm the reason the game turned around because I started watching, and I'm totally
Thank you.
now. So I'm going to use a football
Saturday.
analogy.
You've got to watch on Saturday. Big game Saturday. You've got to watch.
I know. They're just going to have to get through so I can watch the next one.
Yeah.
But I see it as you want to understand both the game that you're playing and the field that you're playing on and the conditions that you're playing under. So no point me as a netballer, which is my background, I can't walk onto a soccer pitch and start grabbing the ball and throwing it around. It's just not going to be helpful. But also I want to understand the conditions. So is it going to be icy? Is it going to be wet? It's an early morning. Is it going to be super hot? Because then I can prepare for those. If we look at the Olympics, my husband works with Jess Fox. They do the same. I'll go to him. It's raining. Are you really going to training? He goes, yes, honey. If it rains, they have to compete. So therefore, they need to train in the rain. It's the same as business owners. Yes, we want to understand the field that we're operating on and the particular game we're playing. But we also need to understand the conditions we're operating under. But understanding as well, those conditions aren't constant. They're going to be ever changing. So we want to be careful who we're listening to, but we definitely need to understand what's going on. So for example, I would not be looking for clickbait headlines, and I wouldn't be going to one of our sensational papers in order to get that vibe for what's going on. Having said that, even a reputable paper, so the Australian Financial Review, ran an article a couple of week ago that said Australians were on the brink of financial collapse based on one question they asked, which was, if you had an unexpected bill of $3,000, would you struggle to pay it? And I want to suggest that anytime in the last 20 years, you would struggle to pay it. So we need to not even just look at the headlines, but understand what the article is actually saying. But where you can get great information about what conditions you're playing, your bank will have economists that send out every quarter a snapshot of what's going on. So one of the banks that I bank with is a National Australia Bank. They released last month or the month before what happened for the previous quarter. And it's so helpful to look through. So for example, some of their statistics were that almost half of Australians have cut back on small luxuries like coffee, etc. A third of us were driving less because we wanted to save on petrol. Half of us had stopped traveling. And yet you look at Insta and you just presume everyone's traveling.
You do.
And yet 22% of people are being really diligent and studying who they're going to spend with. So it's Westpac, for example, brings out a card tracker so you can track the actual spending of people. So it's choosing to find the data you need to understand, but being really careful how you consume it. Because the thing that I know at the moment is recessions bandied around a lot. I was on a panel the other day and the MC said, oh, so we're in a recession at the moment. And I just put up my hand and went, well, we're not. And yet there's a lot of misunderstanding around what actually is happening. Inflation is high. People are reducing their spend. Interest rates are going up. It is absolutely affecting customer spend, but customers are still spending. Businesses are still spending. So we as business owners need to understand how to be great at business, but also we need to be prepared to stand out and not to be lost in this sea of sameness. Because if a business is trying to, as a consumer is trying to compare 5 different businesses, and you will sound, talk, and price exactly the same, ultimately they're going to buy based on price, which is a really dangerous run to the bottom. So you want to be making sure that we're expressing our values, we're getting pricing psychology right, we're talking to our customers and really getting the basics right.
That's such great advice. And I love the whole, what is it, a metaphor around the soccer game, and then really relaying that to the workplace and how you view it, because let's face it, so many people get their truth from places like Facebook.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
That is, or the news, or whatever it is. So it's really that savviness around, listen to the people that you trust, which is what I was saying earlier. Find your resources out there, the mentors, the authors, the the financial experts that you trust and align with, and who speak the truth and give you facts in what they're talking about. So that's such great advice. And I was thinking, when you said around looking at the figures, looking at the stats, looking at, really understanding what's going on. And I guess one of the challenges that we talk to business owners about can be where they've started the business and they've got a team, but the person they're not paying is themselves, because there's not enough profit in the business. Don't get me on my high horse.
Yeah,
but that
good.
is not okay. It's not okay that we do that, because there's so many flow-on impacts that has to us as business owners, and that heading towards burnout and all that kind of thing. It's a very dark spiral downwards. So my question to you, for those people out there who perhaps think that, but my business is turning over a lot of money, and then get to the end of the year, into financial year, and realize that, well, actually it's not making a lot of profit.
Yeah.
What's the levers we need to look at in business that perhaps we've got blinkers on and can't see, and in order to flick that switch and say, right, this is about a profitable business, not just focused on an income amount?
Yeah. And it would be, I could sit here and go, I've got $1 million business. And you go, wow, that's so cool. But my profit could be $20,000. It's not a great business. So it's important to understand, is it sales is your vanity, profits your sanity, and cash is your reality. So if I'm looking at metrics, I want to know every single month what my sales are, what my profit is, what my cash in the bank is. To be honest, I want every day, if I'm a fast growing business, my cash in the bank. Or at the very least weekly. I still open my bank account every day and just have a look, right? What have I paid? What's going out? Great. But so we want to understand those every single month. But more importantly than that, we want to understand what feeds into that. So there are about 8, 9, 10 numbers before sales: retention, leads, conversion rates, average sale value, number of times customers do business with you. So it's really important to understand what those numbers are and what activity I can be doing to affect those numbers. So for example, if a business has been operating for more than 12 months, you've got to have a retention strategy, and you should know your retention rate. If you can increase your retention rate by 5%, tiny amount, you'll increase your profitability by 25%.
Wow.
Like, ridiculous stat. But if you aren't tracking those numbers, if you're not looking at your profit, if you don't know the activities you should be doing, then it can be really easy to, as you said, finish the month or finish the year and work out, well, my staff had a great time. Customers are really happy, but I'm broke. And I'm sorry, we're not running charities. Most of us, we're not running not-for-profits. Many of us want to do good in our business. Certainly I do, but I also want to create wealth while I do it. So it's really important to understand that's not selfish. And if you're not creating wealth, if you're not paying yourself, I would encourage you to sit down and work it back. So to work out, what should you be paying yourself? And what are your costs and your margins? So therefore, what do your sales need to be in order to pay yourself that? And if you think you can't get there, you need to make some harsh choices then about the margins you're charging, the prices you're charging, or your costs. Because I've met a lot of people that should be ripping out some team at the moment or reducing their costs. but also looking at your pricing, looking at those things that lead into your sales.
Wow, we have covered off a lot tonight. Cannot believe, like I just am thinking in my, it's just even
we
in
went
that
a few different places.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yes, we talked about breaking cycles around unlearning mindset and beliefs and leveraging our strengths and knowing what to let go of. We talked about creating wealth and the 7 streams of income. We talked about focusing on profit in business. We talked about media cycles. Oh my goodness. We're like, seriously, in 20 minutes or so.
We're women.
Yay.
We can talk about anything.
Yeah. Yay to us. So we do have a final question, which we love to ask, which is around an actionable action people can take. But before we get to that, Mel, what would you, if people are listening to this, which I know they will be thinking, I want more of Mel. How do I get more of Mel? Where will we direct them to?
Where will you find me? Come play with me on Insta. So I'm melbrown.money. I've got an E on the end of Brown, or at melissabrown.com.au. Again, E on the end of Brown. I've got so many freebies and free resources and more that you can play with.
And
Amazing.
Lots of really excellent reels that include chocolate frogs, I will say. So I feel like you were
many chocolate frogs.
Yes, you were one of the OGs, I think, around like using props with chocolate and eating. Anyway, so curiosity, go check it out. And of course, we'll have all the notes in the show notes. And so, as I said, we like to ask a final question about one action people can take in the next 24 hours. And to be honest, I don't even know. We went to so many different places. I'm wondering, ladies, what area do we want to focus on? Maybe profit in business or wealth creation? What's one thing that our listeners can do in the next 24 hours to start breaking a cycle or moving towards more profit, wealth creation? That's quite an open question, Mel. So I'm going to
I'm going to give you one for business and one for personal wealth creation.
Yes,
love it.
Excellent.
So if you're a business owner, the one thing you've got to do is you have to open up your Xero file and look at your numbers. So actually start to face, or Xero or Quicken or MyUp or whatever you're using, start to face your numbers. If when I said conversion, leads, retention, you don't know any of those, your homework, the one thing I want you to do is go and figure out what those numbers are for you. Because if you don't know what they are, if you don't know what your profitability is, then you don't have a place to build to start. So what are those numbers? And then if you want a second step, what do you want them to be? For personal wealth creation, for most people, I want you to think about, what do you want? What's important to you? Do you want to stop working in 10 years? Do you want to be debt-free? Do you want to put your kids to private school? Whatever is that thing for you. When you think about that goal, what's the one thing you need to do this week in order to move towards that? And that's going to be different for everyone. But I know that most people already know that one thing. They know what they should be doing. So think about the goal, get excited, and then think about what's the one thing that you need to do this week in order to move closer to that goal.
I love that so much. And what I also love about that is we marry always, when we talk about a business vision, we talk about how does that align to your personal vision. So this is, and you could say, a vision for you in your career also, how does that impact and help you live that personal vision? So if you are a business owner out there and you can link the two of those, even in that task around understanding your figures in order to be able to achieve what it is you want to, because we all have personal goals and often they do relate to the time we want to spend with our family or the things that we want to achieve and do. So it's a beautiful marrying. If you're somebody who doesn't like looking at figures, then I'm going to encourage you just to like bite the bullet, because this is all about creating that lifestyle that you want to have. And again, it comes back to understanding your figures. It helps you understand, well, what do I need to make in my business in order to fulfill what I need in my life, rather than doing what we think we should be doing and going after all these high level, I've got to have $1 million business and we don't even understand for what purpose, because it burns us out. So another high horse at the end of our conversation today. But Thank you so much. And you've got a new financial adulting plan coming out soon. If people are listening in real time, when is that opening up, Mel?
So we've got some new special training this time. So it's called Your Money Hit. So that high intensity interval workout, but for your finances, across 4 super quick, short, high burst sessions. So that's happening the first week in September. And then doors open at the same time. So first and second week in September.
Fabulous. Well, I'm pretty sure this is out into the podcast world around that period of time. So we'll pop a link in as well to people, and they can come and see, because Nicky and I have both done that program and it was just phenomenal. So we're huge fans, and we really, really want to thank you for your time and sharing so much valuable knowledge. It's one of these episodes we're going to go back and listen over and over again, I think.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Bye for now, everyone.